Welcome back. I'm talking with historian Alan Wilson about his historical research. So Moses and the hieroglyphs tracks the Etruscan language.
Tracks our alphabet all the way back, and we then are able to look at Egyptian history correctly, and we're able to find these patriarchs, and we are definitely the last people on earth who go looking for them.
So so what you're saying is that the things that the experts believe that the dates in Egypt are for certain things that happened are not the same as in other civilizations. They don't match because
so they alter the other civilizations to match Egypt, and they create huge gaps.
Right.
But the thing is, you see, the marvel of radiocarbon dating is now being dissected all shapes. They adopted a formula, and they multiply by 100 and divide by 80.
Yeah, I've
and
heard
this
you say
then
this before.
you go from 600 BC to 1200 BC, and Ramesses II. Oh, look, he is 1200 because they're using these. They're fudging. They're cooking the books. All right. That's the important point.
Yeah, I heard of a teacher who used to divide the answer he should have got with the answer that he got and come up with a coefficient. Multiply that coefficient by his wrong answer, you get the right answer. So it's
they're cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's mainly Americans. All these American professors at the time, they all had to write their book. And some of them are just, the ink was still wet off the printing press, and out comes radiocarbon dating. Oh my God.
Yeah. So after Moses and the hieroglyphs, you then wrote the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant.
That's right.
Right.
Well, what has happened is that we realised that the Cymry, the Welsh, were very definitely the 10 tribes.
Or half of them. You don't think all of them came?
Yeah, they were a large section.
Large section.
All right. Numbers of them must have stayed in southwestern Asia Minor, which is where St. Paul went to do his preaching with the 7 churches of that area, ancient sort of.
And some of them went to Ireland as well, though, didn't they? Alan?
No, not to my knowledge.
The tribe of Dan, is that not one of the 10 tribes?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay, well, carry on.
I let the Irish do the Irish history and let the Scots invent their own, right? Keep them out of it, right? It'll cause chaos.
Okay.
Right. So we knew that the 10 tribes had come into Britain. And we know, because these things were leading us off, you'd find doors and you went through them, you see. We weren't saying, oh, we'll write a book, or we'll research that. There were sort of clues emerging from these decipherments. And one door we went through was the Holy Family coming here in 33 AD. They're coming to ancient kinsmen. The 10 tribes are their ancient kinsmen. And then you find there's all sorts of snippets around in ancient history showing that they knew damn well where the 10 tribes were. I mean, several 100,000 people don't get lost. They go somewhere. They're not lost. They know where they are, you know. So there was a linkage here, and therefore we decided we'd look at other things. And we had Helen, Britain, being a member of the Holy Family. We had the Glamorgan kings being the first Holy King family. They were the first Holy Family. So there's an intermarriage, and there are intermarriages stated in the ancient Welsh documents of the Holy Family members marrying members of the royal clan. So this is not ill-founded.
Yeah. Now, after the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant, you wrote the Trojan War book. What inspired you to do that book?
Well, clearly we knew now that one of the big planks for throwing out British history was that we claim to be Trojans, and the English section is mainly the Trojan people, right? We think so. But there are also some in Wales, and also Cymru in England. They didn't take defined areas so much.
Right.
But you say the Cymru were the west side of, and Trojans the other. And the English attitude in the 19th century, trying to promote Anglo-Saxonism all the time, promoting these German kings, right? Was that the Trojan War never happened. It was a myth. Therefore, any history based on something that never happened as a myth had to be junk history, and they threw it out. They suddenly threw the entire history out. Bang, out it goes. So out goes the history of Alboin coming here from Syria in sort of 1400, 1500 BC, which is eminently provable. Out went the Trojan War, the Trojans. So all British history could be abandoned because they were founded on lies. Well, if you restore the Trojan War to reality, it's not a myth or a legend, you're right. And clearly it didn't take place between 1135 or 1334. The Greeks have no idea. It did take place and can be traced very clearly to about 650, 638 BC.
Right.
Now, once you got the date of the Trojan War right, all these other histories around the Middle East that are out of displaced for 400 years and 500, 600 years out of place. Rip Van Winkle lands, nobody there. They all fall into place.
Okay. Now, Alan, in the very first program that I recorded with you, I suggested various motives which could be behind the problems that you've had, and I said that it's possibly upsetting to royalty, it's possibly Freemasonic, it's possibly the Catholic Church, or there's a whole, and other groups as well that are possibly behind the smear attempts that you've had. We don't really know who it is, but you actually wrote to the Queen before you'd written any books to ask if this research was going to be upsetting to them. Just tell us about that letter.
Well, we just wrote a letter saying we intended going into these genealogies and this history, and obviously it could have an effect on history, and they're dependent upon history, aren't they?
Yeah.
We was brief enough, and there weren't any objections, and he said, no.
So you got a reply. We'll show that letter on the screen from the Queen's. I don't know. It wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't from her herself, but I mean, obviously she may have been consulted, but some people didn't think there was any problem.
But they said we've got no problem with it as long as you don't associate our name with it. They didn't want to.
They didn't want to be
rubber stamp it.
They didn't rubber stamp it. We're not correct, as if they're not going to say we're correct.
But they're not going to object to it.
They're not object to it.
Okay. Well, now, just as I said at the beginning of the show, Alan, people who want evidence, because there's a great deal of evidence in your books. You've got hundreds of inscriptions and manuscripts and stone carvings, and all kinds of evidence is presented in those books. And as we said, the TV is not really the forum in which to present all that evidence. It's in the books.
Well, it's not all in the books. We could write another 4 or 5 books.
Right. Okay. Now, based on the research that you've done, you believe there are certain, let's just call them treasure sites or sites that you think there are cities or there are artifacts. Can you list them, Alan? You don't necessarily have to list exactly where they are, but if we start with is it Munadagaya?
Munadagaya, Fortress Mountain.
Fortress Mountain. Now that's just northeast of Bridgend, am I right?
Yes.
So just summarise what you think is under the ground there. We've got the remains of St Peter's Church. So that's clearly recognisable. No one disputes that. Tell us what else you think is on that mountain.
Well, there is just above it the remains of an ancient castle, and that's abundantly clear.
And do you suspect that was used by
Caradoc the First?
Caradoc the First.
Yeah, in Roman times, fought the Romans. There's the burial of King Moirig, Arthur's daddy's up there.
Right. And that's in a big circle.
Well, he's in the giant circle at Caradoc, you see.
Right. And
there is a huge bolt-shaped mound. All early Christian churches was bolt-shaped.
Right.
And there's one down at Nash Point.
Right.
King Kerry's buried in it. Because that's why they call it, the main body of a church is a nave, nave, navally. It's the Roman word, or the Latin word for a boat.
Right.
You see, you're in a ship. And
so what else is under the ground there?
Then you've got the Monument of the Soldiers, Great Monument of the Soldiers. There was a terrible massacre. The Saxons and the Brits had a peace conference about 456, something like that. Saxons brought concealed weapons. Well, they would, wouldn't they? And when they'd be drunk too much beer, they massacred 383 British leaders at a peace conference. The English try and write that this was a battle up in the north of England, and the Welsh used to get drunk before the battle, and they all got killed, which is complete fantasy.
Right.
It's a massacre at a peace conference. But nonetheless, that's there. There's St Peter's Church, and there's a crypt under that church. All churches in Britain were named after the founder. That church goes back to the 1st century AD. You work it out.
Now, you also claim that there are fortresses on the side of that mountain.
Yes, there are.
I mean, can you see
there's
remains
the ancient ironworks where they used to smelt their iron anciently up there.
And is there something further down the mountain?
Well, there's the monument at Millway where they buried all these 383 dead nobles. There's a treasure site up there, a vast one, very big, where our man Alan Hassel, and we've seen it on film.
Right.
There are no end of bits and pieces up on that mountain. It's a huge thing.
So do you suspect that there was a town or a city further down the mountain?
There is there are trees as the road. You go up the road to get up there, and there are a lot of trees you can't see to the side. You go mini forest.
Right.
But if you look on Google Earth, and everybody told us in the village, there's lots of ancient ruins under the ground. They're like streets of houses. You can see them sticking up. Right. Under the ground. So there is a place there. Well, if that's Caradoc, there's the lost town of King Caradoc. Right. Well, that's Caradoc. The there's a
right.
town
so you think
King
the town of
He
King
wouldn't live
Caradoc.
up on the mountain 900 feet up in the wind. He'd live down on the
Right.
bottom where it's nice and sheltered.
So you think there's a town at the bottom?
There is a buried town.
A buried town there.
It is. There's no doubt about it.
Right. You also think there's a palace outside. Is it Llantwit Major?
Yeah, Llantwit Major.
Tell us what that is.
Llantwit Vawr, the great, the church of the great Illtyd, who was the first cousin of King Arthur. But in the fields there, just to the north, about a mile north, there remains of a gigantic palace, about 4 acres of it, in an 11-acre site. I got the date wrong last time. They started excavating it around 1881, 1882. And anyway, they know that the walls that protrude through the earth are still 9 feet high below ground. They're about 3 feet thick. So
you've said they should be excavating that site?
Well, Mallory says that Camelot's in southeast Wales. He also says, the other records say it's white. There's loads of white marble scattered all over the fields.
But you don't think Camelot is at Llantwit Major? You think?
Well, once that was destroyed, they had to go somewhere else.
All right. So that was destroyed
in Arthur II's reign.
Right, and then they took.
Then they went up to north of Cardiff.
Right, which is the Yellow Fortress.
Yes, right.
So just explain where that is, Alan.
But
and what you think's there.
the great palace at Llantwit Major is the Palace of the Kings.
Right.
Of course, Wales is a kingdom, not a principality. That's going to upset them. So too bad.
So the Yellow Fortress, just tell us about that.
Well,
we did mention
north of Cardiff is Caermelin, and Caermelin could be Camelot, obviously. That would have been then a major. It was the major royal residence, and it was in a cantref, like a little county there, which could never be taxed. Not even in Norman times you couldn't tax that area. That's the royal cantref.
So suggest it was more important than Cardiff at some point in time.
Well, Cardiff is in the parliamentary 100 of Caermelin. The parliamentary 100 wasn't Cardiff and that place in it. It's the other way round. So if the parliamentary 100 a few hundred years ago is in that field, as it were, you know, it's got to be. It's got to be important, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you couldn't tax it.
Now, you think that one of the reasons why the archaeology department at Cardiff University maybe don't entertain some of your claims, such as Camelot being at Caermelin, is that you can actually see that site from the out the window from Cardiff University.
Yeah. Well, they went digging. Oh, look, most of the people in the university, I think, will be all right, you know. But you get the guy in charge, and you got this Alcock was there he came there in 1945 claiming to be an archaeologist, which he was not. He had no degree in archaeology and none in history. And he came there after the war. You can imagine millions of men coming out of the armed forces, milling about, people still being called up to go in the forces into Germany. And there was chaos, and so they gave him a job. And he worked his way up in the archaeology department and he became professor.
All right. Well,
he's from Carlisle, so he knows a lot about Wales, wouldn't he? You know?
Yeah. So if Caermelin was excavated, what do you think would be found? I know I'm asking you
ruins of a castle. Well, it's known that there was a castle. There was a wedding at the castle in 1454. So the castle was there. See, you leave a castle in Wales in ruin, or leave it there. The farmers come along with their carts, and they're going to start building houses and barns. And, you know.
Yeah. Well, they did that. They did that in Egypt.
It's called Castle Field today.
They did that in Egypt when the sides fell off the pyramid after.
Well, they took them off, didn't they? Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so any other sites, Alan? Well, because you also.
Yeah, well, we were down in West Wales. We were very active in West Wales.
The cave that we featured, where you think the Holy Cross is.
Well,
so that's where. Just you don't have to tell us exactly.
well, it's
where
at
it is.
Nevin. The
In
point.
Nevin.
The point is that metal detectors can't lie,
Yeah.
and if a metal detector identifies an object in the right place, of the right size, and it's non-ferrous metal, it's looking at a silver casket, and I think you've got a good chance.
And you think you've located the burial site of
Empress Helen. Oh yeah, a lot of evidence for that.
Right,
Yeah.
and where's that?
That's again just north of, no, south of Nevin.
South of Nevin.
Yeah.
Right, and any other sites that you think need excavating? In
Well,
those
you know,
areas?
you could dig up all over this. We were friendly with a guy from the Rhondda, and he had a colleague down in West Wales, and there was some very bad scrubland. He's a farmer, so he fenced it off, and he put his goats in there. Well, a goat will eat anything.
Right.
It'll eat brambles and weeds, it'll eat anything. And they cleared the land, and there was the ruins of a big, huge villa, you see.
Really?
And we think that's where the princes, of a known line of princes, would have lived, you see.
Yeah.
So there's masses of places, battle sites. You know, you can find the Battle of Baden site, the Battle of Camlan, the Longbourth. You can find the grave of the prince who was killed in the Battle of Longbourth. And there are so many sites. There's the grave of the sons of Arthur, killed in the war with the Vandals, well known, and kept in good nick. So, yeah, look, there are so many sites. Look, up in Mid Wales, they found the burial of a major prince or king. Traditionally, is wearing golden shirt or golden cloak. They dug it up about 1850, and it's in the British Museum. It's one of their great treasures. Why it's in England, I don't know. Well, there's another one on the borders where there's a guy buried wearing a golden shirt. Now, we've been there. There's a huge mound there. They're trying to say it's an old Saxon saint. Saxon minor saints were poverty-stricken, and he didn't wear golden. We know it's the grandson of Arthur II, right? Who was Gwaednoth, mighty in blood, and he's known to the English as Caswallon, meaning viceroy. Anyway.
Okay, Alan. Well,
but there's loads of sites.
Right. And just before we go to the break, if there was a change of heart in academia and they, took on board your work, what do you think the chances of getting these sites excavated would be? Do you think this archaeological trust would go, yeah, let's go for it?
No, I don't want to go near the archaeological trust. The Morgan Gwent Archaeological Trust.
Well,
I wouldn't
yeah,
touch it. I wouldn't trust them with a
Yeah, I know that.
matchstick.
Okay, but public money, if public money was put behind your work, do you think that can happen? I mean, perhaps if we can get this place at Unisabul excavated, maybe that would be a catalyst.
Well, they should be excavating all of them, because all we're saying is, there's the spot, dig a hole.
Yeah.
We can literally, look, you know that after the war there were lots of millions of shells unexploded in the land in Germany, hundreds and even thousands of bombs from the Russians and us bombing hell out of Germany, and they were deep down, and an awful lot were unexploded. Most did go off, but we dropped so many of them. And so the Germans had a problem with something 20, 30 feet down, 500-pound bomb or even 1,000 pound. And they had to develop deep reading metal detectors, which are very, very good. And that's what you can use. So there's no question about these artifacts being there. It's not up for grabs. Right. It's not up for question.
The company that has offered to help with another scan of Unisabul does have that metal detection equipment. But we're going to go for another break, Alan, and I'll be talking more about British history after the break.